Just get me to 2025. Just please forget about 2024. Welcome on into SEC Unfiltered. He's Dave Shumate. I'm Cole Thompson. And why don't we go ahead and break down what we saw down in Tampa? Because Alabama, despite being a favorite, despite having a lot of opt-ins, despite having the quarterback, and despite having a roster that we all thought maybe was good enough to go to the college football playoff, falls short against Michigan in the ReliaQuest Bowl. Real quickly, make sure that you like the video, hit the ring notification down below, and of course, subscribe to the channel because we talk college football every single day. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the socials, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at SEC Unfiltered. Follow Dave at Mock 10 Sports, me at Mr. Cole Thompson, and check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. This episode is brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com and use the promo code SECU at sign up to get a $50 instant play with your first $5 or more lineup. And ladies and gentlemen, college football might be coming to an end. That does not mean that we can't get the college basketball game going. PrizePicks, the #1 fantasy app for all things college athletics. Go to prizepicks.com, promo code SECU, $50 simply for signing on up. Dave, that sucked. Dave, that was awful. There is not a lot of words that I can come up with that are actually going to be able to really be on air without us being shut down off YouTube. So I'm going to be quiet. That was by far and away a month's worth of disaster and mediocrity, and it all falls on the offense. I want to blame the defense. I can't blame the defense. I want to go ahead and say that there's some issues that need to be corrected. There are, but my God, here's the biggest thing. I feel like a fool. I'm sure many of us feel like fools. I'm sure many of us right now are sitting back and wondering, what did we do wrong? Because when we all said that Alabama was a top 12 team and was left out of the college football playoff, we said that about a month ago. That team got embarrassed. That team was pathetic. That performance, that overall game plan, and give a lot of credit where credit's due. Michigan showed on up. They closed out the year with back-to-back top 15 wins. They were an underdog by 33 combined points against Ohio State and Alabama. They held both to 23 combined points. That is a staple for Sharon Moore going into the offseason. But my God, Alabama fans, do me a favor. Spare me with that you deserve to be in the playoffs, because no one who deserves to be in the playoffs plays like that against anybody.
Yeah, and I don't even think it was I think any objective thing, it wasn't a deserve thing. I mean, again, you put yourself in 3 losses going into the bowl season. You don't deserve anything. You can just, I think most people said, hey, at their best, Alabama's one of the 12 teams. Today, just talking objectively about today, I mean, we're going to start off with a positive. I thought the defense did about as well as you could ask, given how poorly the offensive played from a turnover standpoint, negative plays, field position. I mean, outside of the Justin Jefferson punch thrown, maybe some guys you're tackling that are leaning forward. But again, that's kind of the sport now. People just kind of sling tackle. No one goes backwards. It is what it is. You're going to give up some runs every now and then. I couldn't be upset about Kate Womack's group, considering some of the guys they were out. You lose Jahad Campbell in the game. The offense, and really I think in the first half, it was a combination of the offensive line and Jalen Milroe. Second half, I thought the offensive line got a little better. I thought they got a little better in pass protection, and Jalen Milroe just got lost, could not see anything. There was about anywhere from 3 to 4 times just totally missing Jeremy Bernard over the middle of the field, forcing things, had a third down where he could have picked up Jeremy Bernard and throws it away over his head. Jalen Milroe was – I've never seen anything like it. One of the more as a prospect that has played a lot in college, one of the higher floors – so higher ceilings and lowest floors I've seen. I mean, it can literally lose you football games. Like in the Oklahoma game and in this one, he was about 3/4 of the reason why you lost the football game, because he's regressed, and that's a little scary if you want to be honest.
It
regressed. Was a lot better with Tommy Rees last year from a standpoint of he would miss throws, but it was a first-year starter. You can live with that. It's like Nick Saban used to say, if every possession ends with a kick, it's a successful possession. It is, no matter what happens. And Jalen Hurts did that in 2016. But last year, Milroe wasn't turning the football over. He would leave some plays on the field that you're like, come on, man, you got to execute that. But he wouldn't turn it over. He's had back-breaking plays for them this year. And it's just disappointing. He should shoulder most of this loss. And again, offensive line in the first half, not great. I don't even think Michigan was that good. To be fair, they kind of do the boa constrictor. They want you to play within their style, and Alabama could never get out. and play up tempo with them. And
look, I'm not going to sit here and say anything negative about Michigan. Michigan came, they showed up, they made the most of it.
I mean, dude, you could say the offense wasn't good.
It wasn't, but I knew, but it hasn't been good all year. Like, that's the thing. It wasn't good against Texas. It wasn't good against.
It was good today if it hadn't been good all year, and it's not.
I'm saying that I'm not going to say anything negative about Michigan because Michigan showed up. I mean, Michigan showed up on both sides of the ball. Yeah. They showed up enough to where they got 19 points and got a.
No, that wasn't like Michigan played phenomenal and would have beat anybody that day. No, that was a poorly played football game across the board.
Sure, but at the same time, I mean, Alabama, once again, Dave, this is like the third time that we've had to have this conversation where Alabama has shown you when they want to show up, they can be a dangerous team. They can be a team that has the pieces offensively and defensively to go toe-to-toe with Georgia, to go toe-to-toe with LSU, to go toe-to-toe with the South Carolina squad. And then when they don't want to show up, or the offensive line wants to be a turnstile in the first half, or the turnover after turnover after turnover, or holding onto the football forever, or the inability to connect with wide receivers downfield, or the careless plays time after time after time defensively, they played down to someone's competition. They played down against Oklahoma. They played down against Vanderbilt. They played down in the second half against Tennessee. They played down against everybody who they didn't feel like it. And this isn't an opt-out thing. This was simply they just didn't want to show up. They didn't. And it's embarrassing. It is absolutely embarrassing. I'm done giving credit because I'm sorry. Like Michigan, they're different. This was not their starting defensive line. This wasn't Josiah Stewart. This wasn't Kenneth Grant. This wasn't Mason Graham. These weren't these people. These were the backups. And they were able to put pressure on Jalen Milroe into making mistakes constantly in the first half and jump out to a 16-0 lead. Now, give a lot of credit for credits too. The defense was able to hold Davis Warren, Alex Orji. They played up to par. Wink
Martindale was phenomenal.
But what I'm saying is, like, Alabama's defense came back. They were able to get a big time turnover, but still. It's like Wink Martindale came with the game plan. I'm going to blitz. I'm going to put Jalen Milroe in a blender. I'm going to make him feel the pressure all day. And I'm going to beat this Alabama's ass. I'm going to beat Alabama's front five constantly. And guess what they did? They were down early. They weren't able to get off the mat. They found a way to get some life back in. But I'm sorry. It's not like they had a lot. They didn't. Michigan's defense showed on up, and their backups showed on up extremely well.
Yeah. No, there's no doubt. Defensively, it's a phenomenal game plan. They're playing with their hair on fire. There's a bunch of motivated guys. I'll give them that. Again, I can't say anything negative about Alabama's defense. I don't think it was them. It cost me. It was literally a Jalen Milroe situation, and Wink Martindale had him in a blender all night. And then play calling was conservative at times. But again, it's just a combination, like I've been saying all year. This isn't a good pairing. It is not a good marriage between Kalen DeBoer, Nick Sheridan, and Jalen Milroe. But both parties, I think, need to go their separate ways. It's just not a good marriage, in my opinion. You see it week to week. Again, he's gotten worse this year. They want more of a pocket passer who can scan the field. You saw it with Michael Penix. Jalen Milroe is not that guy. And again, I don't know if Jalen Milroe is ever going to be that guy because Cole, like I told on our shows every week, I say every time, he's not good in the zone read stuff. Does not have a feel for that kind of stuff.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. The problem is that also when you look, this team constantly put itself in such terrible situations from the get-go. I mean, it was fourth down. I understand. Go for it. Be a little aggressive. Okay, that's fine. What happens next? The rain starts coming down. You get a fumble. Well, now it's 6-0. You get a big-time interception. Terrible read by Jalen Milroe. That leads to a touchdown. Another fumble. Field goal. It's 16-0, and we're going into the first half. You got to realize there was a point in the game where I saw this. And I want to give a huge shout out to Chris Marler. He's funny as all hell. If you don't follow him, Vern Funquist. There was a tweet. 134 yards of offense to close out 2024 for Michigan. Jimmy Carter, who just died, 0. Alabama, -2. -2 on the play. How is that possible? How? It's Alabama.
Alabama outgained them at half.
And that's the point, is that when you look back, that was going into the second quarter, and they still found a way to gain 160 yards and put themselves at least in the conversation. And they couldn't do it. And they couldn't close the gate. And what was the reasoning? Because the offensive line was terrible at times. I thought the third quarter, they got back to what they kind of showed. I don't think that they showed it at all in the fourth quarter. I think the fourth quarter, we saw more of what we saw in the first quarter from Alabama's offensive line. Jalen Milroe missing reads left and right, overshooting wide receivers. His fourth down aggressiveness. And at some point, you have to realize the thing that really bothers me with Jalen Milroe, and it has all year, he waits too long for a play to unfold. He stands behind the line of scrimmage. He surveys the field. First read, second read, third read, fourth read. Oh, now I'm already going to be sacked. Now I'm down for a loss of 5 yards. Now I'm down for a loss of 7 yards. Sorry. I mean, what do you want me to say at this point? What in all do you want me to say? And I'm going to go ahead and defend myself for a minute. This has been a problem that we have said all year about Jalen Milroe, is that he constantly puts himself behind the sticks and gives Alabama fewer chances. You know what you have when it's this offensive line. The offensive line has not changed all year. And this is a big deal that I had going into the season. I looked top to bottom at this offensive line. I didn't think they had enough depth. You want to know why they didn't have enough depth? Because they didn't have a guy they could replace one of the starters with. The starters struggled, and lo and behold, watch what happened. They lost to a solid defensive line in Oklahoma, and they lost to a solid backup defensive line in Michigan. The last 2 of their last 3 games. That's what you get.
Yeah, I'll say everybody kind of struggles with depth at the offensive line, but really that right side, they were bad all year. It was Elijah Pritchett is who it was. He was the one that struggled most of it. I mean, there's not much more you can say about this individual game. You just give a tip of the cap. Michigan playing their ass off, having nothing to lose, a phenomenal defensive game plan, blitzing all these simulated pressures. Like I mentioned, having Jalen Milroe in a blender, and Jalen Milroe wasn't great. Again, from a decision, I wouldn't have went for it if I was Kalen DeBoer on the 4th and 7. I would have punted, tried to pin him back a little. I mean, I know you got the ball back, but still, I'd have probably pinned you back. That was one I wouldn't have went for. I actually didn't hate the call at the end of the half by Sharon Moore, honestly. I mean, people are going to bitch because it ended up Alabama getting a field goal. But I do just wait. As sloppy as Alabama was playing in that first half, yeah, I'll make them try to punt out of the back of their end zone with their punter with his heel in that back. I mean, they may oversnap it the way they've been playing. I didn't hate that. It didn't work out. So, I mean, I didn't think there was any egregious play calls that you were kind of like, what the hell is that coach doing? Again, Sharon Morris was more just a hindsight 2020. Only one I would say I probably would have punted if I was Kalen DeBoer in that 4th and 7. But I don't think that really had any massive outcome on it.
I'm going to give a lot of credit to Michigan. And the reason why is because I kind of knew what this team was going into the year. It was a rebuilding season. They were nowhere near what we all initially thought they were going to be. And they showed on up. Toward the end of the season, and now they have high expectations going into 2025. I mean, Dave, we talk about what a win does for a program in the SEC to close out with 10 victories, to be able to go through the offseason workouts and put you in a great mood, to be able to win on the recruiting trail, to show we're these few pieces away from actually contending. Look at what Michigan gets to say to close out their 2024 season underneath Sharon Moore, who many people were not that fond of when the hire was made, and they certainly weren't that fond of throughout the regular season. A win against Ohio State, a top 10 Ohio State team, and really a dominant performance defensively. A dominant performance defensively against Alabama. A win against an Alabama team that many people were saying, hey, you know what? They belong in the college football playoff. I'm not going to sit here and say they belonged in the college football playoff, but I will say I thought they were one of the 12 best teams toward the season's end. They got a win over that. They just landed one of the best quarterback prospects we have seen potentially in Bryce Underwood. Now, he's got to live up to expectations, but if he does, that's a great move. Justice Haynes, the running back, I think that he is going to be a perfect fit for what they want to do with Sharon Moore's offense. I think that he is going to be a good replacement for what you have in terms of
Sharon's offense. It's Chip Lindsey's.
But Chip Lindsey's offense, Chip Lindsey's offense, I think he's going to be fine. So you add that into it. They're going to add in, I think, another wide receiver prospect. They had a decent recruiting class. They're in a really good spot. And they did this, and they had 8 wins with inconsistent quarterback play all year. Like tell yourself at the start of the season, hey, Davis Warren and Alex Orji are going to beat Ohio State and Alabama to close out the year. You wouldn't believe that. And now the vibes are good in Ann Arbor. And this is a team that absolutely can have every opportunity, if it continues to build the way that it is, putting itself on the primetime stage to at least be in the conversation to go return to the college football playoff in a 12-team race. They started 2024 with a win against Alabama. They closed 2024 with a win against Alabama. And when they beat Alabama the last time, guess what happened? They catapulted themselves to a national championship. They beat Alabama this time. They're going to land some players in the transfer portal that are only going to better this roster going into next season. That's a big-time move moving forward for, I think, Michigan.
Yeah. I mean, No, I mean, Michigan, I don't know how well he fits into Chip. We'll agree to disagree on that. Chip Lindsey's more spread. He wants to sling it out with Bryce Underwood. So I don't know if Justin said, we'll agree to disagree on that. I don't know if he fits perfect with Chip Lindsey. I actually think he fits perfect with what they did last year, or really what Sharon wants to do perfectly. You're right, to Sharon Moore's offense, but not Chip Kelly, Chip Lindsey.
But still, when I'm just looking at this team, I got to give praise, because here's the thing. I got a lot of crap from people saying that USC, you didn't give USC its credit. I thought USC this year should have been a 10-win team. I thought USC this year, after the performance that they put on against LSU, they should have been considered one of the better rosters in the Big Ten. They underachieved. They completely underachieved. You want to know who I knew was going to be about a 7-5, 8-4 roster? Michigan this past year. Guess what? They did that with inadequate quarterback play. And they did this against two quality teams, two teams that going into the final week of the regular season, we said probably going to be college football playoff bound, probably going to be put into a really good spot. By the way, we have over 1,200 people watching right now. So if you could, just like the video, hit the ring notification, and subscribe to the channel, because we talk college football every single day, whether it be about the SEC underachieving, whether it be about the SEC overachieving, whether it be about Jalen Milroe and Alabama struggling in year one of the Kalen DeBoer era. But you should like the video and hit the ring notification. It takes like 2 seconds just to go ahead and get the job done. Dave, the one thing I will say, thank God this offense is over. And what I mean by that is this version of Alabama's offense, we're not going to see it next year. They got to make some drastic changes. I don't know how they do it, but they're going to have to make some drastic changes very soon.
Yeah, you got to get somebody who can stretch the field vertically at all three levels. That's what you got to do. I mean, it's a very simple game plan. It can't be Jalen Milroe next year. He just doesn't fit what you want to do. It has to be somebody. I think Ty Simpson fits the offense a little better. And I don't even know if it's Ty Simpson. I'm just saying it may be Keelan Russell, if we're being honest. Again,
he's been killing it so far down at camp.
Freshman in his career, but if there was a year to potentially do it, and again, that's where you have to temper expectations, though, Alabama fans. You have to temper those expectations, because true freshman coming in, that kind of screams 9-win season again. And I think he'd be fine with a 9-win season. I don't think he's going to be fired. 8-4, lost to Auburn, you may be in a conversation. But again, to the main conversation, I think Keelan Russell can be in that conversation. I think he could be in that conversation again, but that's going to come with its lumps a little bit.
You have got to put yourself in a position. I don't care who's your starting quarterback. Whoever is going to give you the best opportunity to win consistently. And I'm not talking about Georgia. You can lose to Georgia next year down in Athens and no one's going to complain. If the offensive line has some problems, if there's some inadequacies in the defense just because of the way that you're watching whoever's going to be the new offense coordinator for Georgia next year, or if it is going to be Mike Bobo, that's fine. Whatever it is, so be it. You can lose that game. You can't lose to Vanderbilt. You can't lose to Oklahoma with a brand new offense coordinator. You can't lose games to LSU when you're hosting them. Those are things that are going to be inexcusable. And so whoever is going to be the next starting quarterback down in Tuscaloosa has got to be the right fit for Kalen DeBoer's offense. Because if I continue to see this, if Alabama fans continue to see this, he's going to be run out of town. Kalen DeBoer, all the good graces with Courtney Morgan, what they bring in the transfer portal, how they're landing top-tier recruiting classes, how they're developing talent, it's going to be nothing if they don't show up in the games that they're expected to win. They were expected to win against Oklahoma. They couldn't get off the line of scrimmage. They were expected to win against Vanderbilt. Their defense couldn't stop a cold that day. They were expected to make it a 4-quarter battle against Tennessee. They couldn't show up in the second half. They looked awful at times in the Georgia game, and they looked awful today for 4 quarters offensively. Defensively, Kane Womack came to play. The offense, Nick Sheridan, outside of a few play designs, it was cardboard crap all damn day. All damn day.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing. I mean, that's just a burn-it film game right there. I mean, outside the defense, you can go probably house that somewhere in the library potentially if you go. But again, I don't. There wasn't anybody really calling that you'll play against. That's a burn the film game offensively right there. You did nothing well.
Dave, let me ask you. There's rumors. There are. We gotta bring it up. That Quinn Ewers has been contacted by a school for $6 million to go play in 2025. What if that school is Alabama? Do you make that move?
I take Quinn Ewers over Jalen Milroe.
I'm
telling you, I keep saying Jalen Milroe, Alabama will never win a national championship. You can win some games with Jalen Milroe, and this is coming from a guy who's won the SEC championship. You will never win a national championship with Jalen Milroe, and the playoff moving to 12 teams only hurts him.
If you're Jalen Milroe, what do you do? I mean, because that has to be a serious conversation. There was speculation. There was a lot of people who believed that this was going to be his final game. He'd go off to the pros. He'd be probably a second-round pick, maybe even a late first-round pick because the value of a quarterback. What do you do at this point? Because I'm not sure that you can just guarantee yourself a spot in the NFL draft or even think that you're going to be close to it by the time that you go ahead and figure this out. I think that everything's open.
Said it in the comments because I agree too. I don't think you got to pay Quinn Ewers $6 million. He didn't have a lot of leverage in this negotiation table here. The guy behind him is going to replace. So like, Quinn, do you want? I don't have to pay you $6 million. I can pay you $2, and you can take it. So I don't know if it's $6. I wouldn't pay him $6 if I was the GM.
What do you do if you're Jalen though? Do you go pro? Do you go back to a school? Do you enter the transfer portal?
You're not going to go back to Alabama if they bring.
You're not going back. That was his last game at Alabama. That was his last game. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, depends who your suitors are, and he'll have suitors. I mean, the guy's played a ton of football. Played a ton of football in the SEC. He's won an SEC championship. Played in big games. So you have that. I saw Bud Elliott talking about he'd be a good fit in Gus Malzahn's offense at Florida State, and I was like, I don't see that, though, because he's not good. When you think of the prime Gus Malzahn offense, it's with Nick Marshall and how great they were in that zone read game. Jalen doesn't possess that strength. He doesn't have a real knack for it. In today's game, if you want to watch someone who has a knack for it, it's Diego Pavia, Haynes King, who happen to play in the same bowl game. But, no, I'd probably go try to find another school. So someone will bite on Jalen Milroe.
Someone will bite on Jalen Milroe. 100% they will. I don't know who, but I don't think that at this point you can guarantee your spot going to the NFL draft. That performance, that kind of game plan with how many missed throws, how many reads that were out of place. Miami seems interesting. I don't know if I love it, but I think that with the vertical offense that you're going to have with what Shannon Dawson offers, you at least can try it. They were all in on John Mateer. Maybe it would work. Maybe in the ACC, get you to the college football playoff with an easier schedule. But that is a game that I am burning if I'm Jalen Milroe. And that kind of made me decide, you know what? I'm going back to school. Because I can't show up and say, oh, no. That 13 points. And I'm the reason that we had 3 turnovers back to back to back. Oh, I'm going to the NFL draft. I can't do that at this point.
Think about it. Not even just this game. 2 out of your last 3 in critical games. I mean, if you want to say this one's critical, but I mean, again, we say bowl games aren't meaningless, and I think we all find ourselves guilty of sometimes, like when we're looking far out, like whatever. But when you suit up, when these kids suit up in 60 minutes and they're on the field, you want to go win the game and like in that moment. So to your point there, Cole, I mean, going back to the Oklahoma game. I mean, dude, 2 out of your last 3 games, he has played. I mean, he has single-handedly cost you football games, and your biggest.
He cost you no. So the Oklahoma game, he was 90% the problem. The offensive line, I thought was awful. I thought both tackles, I thought Caden Proctor, Elijah Pritchard, both got worked by Oklahoma's defensive front. I thought that he was awful in that game. I thought he was awful in the second half against Tennessee. That's the game that I more so put on Jalen Milroe.
The whole game against Tennessee. You're right. That was another one.
That's the one that I put all the pressure on Jalen Milroe. I put that one. I put this one. As we do to close on out every single show. By the way, we have over 1,300 people watching, so just go ahead and like the video, hit the ring notification, and subscribe to the channel. We're on the race to 20,000 subs. We got live streams all day. Dave, I'll let you go first.
January 19th.
I'll let you go first. Who you got? What's the grade for Alabama? First year, Kalen DeBoer.
I mean, from an Alabama standard, from a championship or bust, it's
from an Alabama standard.
It's an F. From an objective standpoint, I think, like when you just take off like Alabama and you're just looking at the losses, wins and losses, and weighting them how they were, I'm gonna go C-. Again, I would probably went B if they would have won this game and got to 10 wins and kept that streak going. I mean, again, first time they haven't won 10 games since I was in high school. Let that sit in. 2007, folks, was the last time they did not win 10 games in a season. I'd go C-, Bear. I mean, again, you have the Georgia win. I mean, the Missouri win's a 10-win team. South Carolina's a 10-win team. You get 3 wins over 10-win or more teams in a playoff team. But I think the problem you have with Alabama now is, and people say the dynasty's dead. Dude, the dynasty's been dead since 2020. Like, if you want to be honest, we're like Bama walked on the field and won in pregame warmups. Like that's the dynasty.
Yeah.
I mean, 21, yeah, they went to the national championship game, but again, 21, 22, 23, even this year, the dynasty's been dead since 2020, folks. Like, they were Bama. It's like, oh God, like we see them in pregame warmups and it's over. But I think under Nick, you never lost to teams that you were better. Like, I mean, Nick Saban never had. He only had 1 loss to a team that wasn't ranked in the top 25 when they played. And that was A&M in 21. Like, they never lost to teams that they were better in, even if that team was good. This year, the problem you have is Vanderbilt, hell of a year. But Alabama
should never lose to Vanderbilt.
Let's just call a spade. That's nothing against Vanderbilt. That's just, we're talking from an Alabama perspective. So Vanderbilt, today against Michigan, Oklahoma, there's 3. And then
honestly,
Tennessee. You mentioned the Tennessee game, Bear. I mean, that was just ugly in general. That was an ugly football game. Very similar to today.
You couldn't close it in the first half against Tennessee to allow them to come back in the second.
Yeah. I mean, if Vanderbilt's up 7-0, it's like you held Tennessee to 0 points. You feel like they're in a decent shot. But anyway, Bear, not to be long-winded, but those 3 losses just they outnumber the good wins. I mean, I guess we're 3-3, 3 wins over 10 wins or more, and you got 3 very average to below average losses. I don't know, a C-, man. The way you faltered at the end of the year when you had a chance to really, like, you felt like you springboarded yourself after that performance in Baton Rouge against LSU, and it just gave out for whatever reason. Year 1's always a tough one. There's going to be culture changes. There's going to be new ways, organizational ways of doing it. Shoot, we saw Kalen DeBoer take the GOAT's office and redesign it. There's going to be changes, but I think at the same time you can say, hey, we left some meat on the bone and we could have been better. So Bama underachieved this year. I'm going to go 7. I'm going to go C-.
Yeah, it would have been a C- for me with a 10-win season, because 10 wins should be the bare minimum at a place like Alabama. It should be a standard. Your team was good enough to be a 10-win roster. And you know that because if you got a win over Georgia and you dominated in the first half against Georgia, and you got a win over South Carolina and you dominated the first half against South Carolina. So I know for a fact that you were good enough to be a 10-win team. With that being said, this is a D- season for me. And it's a D- season because of, number one, let's go back to the Vanderbilt game. I don't care if Vanderbilt has Diego Pavia as a first-round pick. You never lose to Vanderbilt. Ever. Ever. Never. You never show up the way that you did in the second half against Tennessee and live to tell the tale. Ever. For years, Dave, we talked about Tennessee being a bottom dweller, and that when this rivalry appeared the third Saturday in October, this was a game that was kind of thrown to the wayside. We were already being too much focused in on LSU versus Alabama. They showed up in the second half. Alabama didn't. You lost to a team that ranked 123rd in passing, and they had as many passing yards as you in the entire half than you had in the entire fourth quarter. That's what you had against Oklahoma. Oklahoma couldn't run the football to save its life, yet somehow, some way, Jackson Arnold decided to wake up and turn it into Jalen Milroe for a half. That's what he did. And then let's throw on this game where it wasn't Michigan's defensive line that went up against Texas. It wasn't Michigan's front 7 that went up against USC. It wasn't even Michigan's front 5 that went up, or even their secondary that went up against Ohio State. These were the backups. You had 11 sacks allowed. Your quarterback was constantly under duress. 4 straight consecutive turnovers. They couldn't complete a forward pass to save their life, and they win a football game by 6 points. So no, I'm sorry. This is a D- season. That's just a fact. You don't lose to teams like this with this type of offensive inadequacies. If it was a game that came down to great defensive battles, sure. But when you're giving Michigan free yards inside your own territory by mental mistakes as a second-year starter, I don't want to hear it. There's no excuse for it. There's no excuse to lose to Oklahoma. There's no excuse for you to lose to Vanderbilt on the road. And there certainly is no excuse for you to show up the way that you did today. There isn't. And I had real expectations for Alabama. I wasn't one of these people that was going ahead and saying, look at what Alabama is going to be in the future underneath Kalen DeBoer. There was always going to be a culture change. There was always going to be moves made. There was always going to be a shift in dynamics. I thought for sure 9-3, 10-2 was on the horizon, but never national championship expectations like some people did. But I also was going to be realistic and say, I understand that Alabama has a head-to-head win over South Carolina, but who is the team right now that you think could actually win in the college football playoff? Wasn't the one that showed up today, and they hadn't been there since probably the LSU game. That team that we were saying, oh yeah, guaranteed to be in the college football playoff. Nope, not that one. Ole Miss is thrown to the wayside. We didn't even give Ole Miss a fair shake because they lost to Kentucky. This is not as bad as a loss to Kentucky, but it certainly is not a good one. It isn't. Nowhere near close to it. So I'm sorry, when you look at currently the status of Alabama, you got to be able to bring back whoever you can Ryan Williams, I see in the comment section people saying he's off to Oregon. No, he's not. Jalen Mbakwe and him would not be coming back together. He made sure that Jalen Mbakwe was coming back. If he knew he was leaving, then he would have said, Jalen, let's go elsewhere. So he's back next year. But that's about all you got. Offensive line, I have no idea what the hell you're going to do, but you got to make some serious switches, whether it's personnel, whether it's coaching staff, whether it's just straight up workout regimen.
You lose some guys.
I'm fine with that. Parker Brailsford, that's the one dude who I think is guaranteed to have his spot back. Everyone else, I wish you the best of luck if you're not going to pan on out. Sorry, you gave up 11 sacks in 2 games to this team. Not going to sit here and try and argue with you. I'm not. You got to fix some things defensively.
I'm Proctor back. Again, you can't find 6-7 guys like that at Grove. You're not finding that out of the portal. You can be upset with him at the end of the year, but like, dude, if Caden Proctor went in the portal, you know how much money he get? Like,
oh yeah, 100%.
You're not replacing him. Like, we'll disagree on that. Like, I'm not letting a big 6'7" offensive tackle who's playing.
You need a different team, though, and you need a different dynamic, and you need a different mentality. I respect Kalen DeBoer doing things his way, and I completely understand that there are going to be things done, but let's just call a spade a spade. There are things that you do down in Alabama. Getting to 9-4 is not acceptable.
I'm just not going to overreact to today. It brought it a whole grade down for me. But I'm thinking like this. I'm not judging this on Nick Saban's Alabama because it's not. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. Like, again, I'm with you, Bear. I mean, I get it. Like, today's loss is bad. It's probably potentially the worst one you've had all year.
No, and imagine how much worse it would have been if they didn't have opt-outs on the defensive line. I mean, that's my thing.
I'm saying. I think when you factor in all Michigan's opt-outs, you're right. And how, like, they were kind of non-committable on offense. Like, again, you had numerous chances to win this game after starting off bad. It's like, this couldn't have been this is the worst loss of the 4 all year. I mean, if you really want to spin it, you can say Vanderbilt if you're just looking at the name and logo. But Vanderbilt is a solid football team this year, and you got them in a bad spot. No excuse, shouldn't lose. But this one, when you factor in, pull back all the layers, you're right. All the
this is the worst
loss. This is the worst loss they had. I don't know. I'm giving you credit for beating a playoff team when I'm looking at the season at 35,000 foot. I mean, the way you finish the season's an F, no doubtly. But I'm going back from the beginning to now.
The reason why
wins and losses, I got to go. It's below average. So that's why I'm saying it's C- there. And again, I think they would have won today. I would have been giving them probably a B. You know, but again, I look at like what players improved this year. I think Tyler Booker was better. Jalen Milroe.
He's going pro. So
no. I'm just saying. I'm talking about just development as a program. Who got better? Tyler Booker got better this year. I think Bray Hubbard got better this year. Tim Smith got better this year, I think, throughout the year. LT Overton maybe have led the country in almost sacks. I mean, he was solid, but you brought him in as a transfer from A&M. I mean, outside of that, I mean, I see some people posting Josh Cuevas, but I'm like, he was just, I mean.
Eventually, you'll come back in.
Eric, can you hear me?
Yeah, continue to talk. You're doing well. The camera just will figure it out.
Yeah, but just wrapping up. No, I mean, I'm sorry. I think C- when you look at it from 35,000 foot view, but I get why people would put it in the D range too.
I don't know. I'm putting it in a D-. I am. Maybe Dave Shumate will be back. Maybe he won't. Who cares? Alabama, for all the fans out there that believe that this team was good enough to go to the college football playoff, quiet. It's quiet time now. Nobody's allowed to speak. Nobody's allowed to bring it up. Nobody's allowed to talk about anything because they just showed you today that with players such as your starting quarterback, multiple wide receivers, multiple offensive linemen, they are unable to get the job done. Welcome back in, Dave Shumate. Alabama finds a way to lose 19-13. There's a lot of things that need to be switched off in the offseason. I don't know if this can be even sustainable, but I'll tell you what. This is Alabama. Act like it. Get back to your expectations. Whenever you can, I promise you, things will turn the corner. But until that day comes, I'm not believing in a lot right now. The committee got it right today because if you tell you what, as much as we want to blame SMU for not showing up against ranked teams, this version of Alabama didn't show up against an offense that had no identity. No Colson Loveland, no Khalil Mullings, no Jonathan Edwards, multiple opt-outs defensively. I'm not going to sit here and defend Alabama today. I'm not. I'm sorry. It's not even going to be possible. And I understand we can look back, hindsight's 2020, what they did a month ago versus what they did now. But I'm going to live in the here and now. And the here and now, that Alabama team that showed up today, that was just as pitiable of a performance as the one against Oklahoma. And that was against backups. That was against the 8th ranked Big Ten teams backups. I'm sorry. I'm not defending you. But For Dave Shumate, I'm Cole Thompson. We are going live multiple times today. We got the Texas Bowl. We got the Cheez-It Bowl with South Carolina and Illinois. Another Big Ten SEC battle to where the Big Ten gets to go ahead and cry out over the SEC. So make sure that you like the video, hit the ring notification, subscribe to the channel because we talk college football every single day. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the socials. The link is in the description. Follow us at Mr. Cole Thompson and at Mock 10 Sports. And check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. For the final time, Alabama finds a way to underachieve, underperform, and quite frankly, crap the bed in the biggest moment. But the good news is 2024 is almost over. Peace.